Quick heads up before we dive in. This talk is one you may have heard 1,000 times, but there's one quietly explosive idea most people miss. Neville is not just telling you how to get something in the future. He is describing how time itself folds inside you, how the present moment becomes the only place creation happens. Listen for the moments where he stops the world, literally, and talk to me after. Let's have a listen.
You come into a place just like this. When I first tasted of it, many years ago, I found myself moving in time. I would say backwards in time, judged by the costumes, judged by the clothes. I would say it was 150 years ago in this land of ours, in the East. I would say it was in the New England states. Looking at the people that I saw, I was taken in spirit into this place, and here is a wonderful restaurant of the day, 150 years ago. It was a Sunday afternoon. I could tell by the atmosphere. It was afternoon. I saw a table of 4, 2 young men in their early 20s, undoubtedly college students, and then what would be their parents. And then came a lady, she was the waitress, bringing a tray of food to the table. She had already served the course of soup. There was a huge, big bay window through which I could look. And through this window, I could see the grass moving. The wind was blowing. It was fall. I could see the leaves falling. They were dropping. I could see a bird in flight. I saw other diners. And at that moment, I knew that if I could arrest an activity that I felt in me, everything would stand still. I knew it. I no sooner knew it than I tried it, and I arrested not in them, I arrested the activity in me, all in my head. And everything stood still. The bird flying flew not. The grass moving moved not. The leaves falling fell not. The waitress walking walked not. The diners dining dined not. And everyone was as dead as things in the museum, as though they were made of clay. I examined them all. They're all dead. One moment before, they were all living beings, and everything was alive. The bird in flight, if arrested, should fall, shouldn't it? If gravitation is a law that is absolute. If it is arrested in flight, that thing should fall. It didn't fall. It stood still, just as I arrested it. Leaves I could see, but they did not fall. Everything stood still. The grass stood still. The waitress stood still. Well, that's understandable. If you stop us, you can't go through the floor. And here are these diners, and one facing me is a young boy, about 22 years of age. He had the spoon almost to his mouth, and it was perfectly still. He could not move it. I looked at him. He looked like death itself. Then I released that activity within me, and everything continued in its course.
Okay, hear that? Most people skim over that as a vivid anecdote. But listen again. He is not talking about traveling through a clock or getting historical nostalgia. He is saying the present was malleable inside him. Perception paused, senses rearranged. The hidden lesson.
How?
If your inner moment can arrest time, then the future is not a distant line you walk into. It's an interior stance you hold now. This is why people who merely visualize later don't get results. They haven't retrained the felt present. They're still waiting for time to hand them the future.
And then I knew that everything was within me. That all that I beheld, though it appeared without, it was within, in my own wonderful human imagination. of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. It is not taking place there at all. It's taking place within me. And I tasted of the power of God.
This is where Neville becomes a radical psychologist, not just a mystic. When he says everything was within me, he isn't being poetic. He is describing the locus of creation. Most listeners treat imagination as a tool you use to influence outside events later. Neville says imagination is the place where events happen. So the practical pivot here is, stop treating visualization as rehearsal. Treat it as the laboratory of now. The Stoic version of this is, control your judgments about momentary impressions. Neville goes further. Control the very texture of the impression so it is different. That's how the world responds.
I was on a ship coming through the Caribbean Sea from Port of Spain, Trinidad, to Mobile, Alabama. It was 7 days at sea. It was a freighter bringing bauxite into the mines, or rather the ovens in Alabama. It only carried 12 passengers, so I retired early. I had my wife and my little girl. Now, the thing to do aboard a little ship like that, rather than simply enjoy the 3 meals, the sea breezes, and then sleep. So I turned in quite early. And in the wee hours of the morning, I felt myself like a fiery beam being pulled out of my skull in the form of a serpent, like a spiral motion. And here I am, clothed, entirely different. I am fire and air. My body is simply one living body, something unlike anything I had ever experienced. And as far as my eye could see was a huge sea of human imperfection. The blind, the lame, the halt, the withered, everything, all imperfect. I glided by in this body of light. I did not need the sun. I did not need the moon, the stars, anything to illuminate my world. I was luminous enough. As I glided, I simply illuminated the area that I wanted to see. As I came by these, and I knew they were waiting to see me, waiting for me. As I glided by, everyone was transformed into the perfection that I felt myself to be. I was made perfect. And as I walked by, everyone had to be perfect in my presence.
This is the payoff. Neville shows the mechanic. You are the place where forms happen. When you took on that inner identity, clothed entirely different, the environment reflected it. People talk about manifesting like a checklist, but Neville's point is deeper. You become the center of a different set of appearances. That's why the language he uses is so severe. Ignore the senses. Walk in the assumption. The hard part, most brains default to future as distance. Neville says, the future becomes present the moment you feel it, and the world reorganizes around that present. We come away from Neville's story with a comfortable summary. Imagine it, feel it, get it. But I want to step into something more uncomfortable and useful. Neville isn't giving you techniques to land a job, a lover, or a car. He's pointing at a single terrifying fact. The center of reality is inside you. That is a statement that breaks 2 habits. Habit 1. We imagine progress as movement through time, a line of causes and effects that begins outside and ends in us. Habit 2. We treat feeling as passive, something that happens to us while we chase outcomes. Neville flips both. He says the future doesn't arrive at you. You become it now by the quality of presence you inhabit. Reality, time, causality, consequence, rearranges around your interior state. Why do we miss that? Because modern thought trains us to be ordinary engineers of change. We count steps, schedules, and external proofs. That approach can sometimes work for practical tasks. But when the fabric you want to change is the felt present, the textures of perception, steps fail. You can't engineer your way into a different present. You must become one. That is terrifying because being requires letting go of control rituals. It requires faith that you are more than your sensory evidence. Stoicism gives us a mirror for this. Stoics taught, you can't control impressions, only your assent to them. Neville upgrades that. You don't merely assent. You choose what the impression is. The Stoic asks, what judgment will I attach? Neville asks, what reality will I carry in the moment? That is a profound difference. One is a defense. The other is creative authorship. Practically, this looks ugly and patient. Practice making small presents different. Not convincing your brain with slogans, but cultivating a set of bodily tones and attention patterns that feel different. Rest the little inner movie that says lack, and hold a stillness of fulfillment until the inner sensations accept that as true. Hold it long enough for your nervous system to stop objecting. That's where Neville's strange stories help. They're not metaphors. They're an invitation to taste the interior shift. Finally, this matters morally. If the center of reality is inside you, then responsibility is dizzying. You aren't only a passive figure pushed by circumstance, but that responsibility is also liberating. It means your smallest persistent shift, a habit of attention, a refusal to feed fear, actually has creative power in the world. It's not woo. It's the hard interior work of learning to live from the end rather than walking toward it. So the challenge I want to leave you with is simple and brutal. Next time you visualize, don't do a future rehearsal. Stop the movie. Rearrange the present. Ask, what is the felt reality I could stand in now that would make the later scene inevitable? Practice that single move. Make the felt present different. And watch whether the world in ways large and small begins to match it. Thanks for listening. I'll drop timestamps and the 3 clips in the description so you can cut them for your own study. If you tried this in one small situation today, tell me what changed. Let's figure this out together.